In China, a new generation of pressure cookers is entering people's homes, and it has no manual valve, no whistle, and doesn't depend on you pressing a single button. It cooks on its own. It chooses the ideal time, pressure, and temperature for each dish, and it responds to voice commands. If this technology spreads the way the numbers show it spreading, the pressure cooker as you know it, the one sitting in your kitchen right now, could be on borrowed time. And the reason isn't just convenience. It's a problem this appliance has always had, one you've probably never stopped to think existed. Stop for a second and think, how many times a week does someone in your house use a pressure cooker or a multifunctional electric cooker? This isn't a small market. China alone sold 37 million pressure cookers in 2023, more than any other country in the world. The country is also responsible for around 68% of all global electric pressure cooker production, with factories concentrated in industrial hubs like Guangdong, Zhejiang, and Jiangsu. In global terms, the electric pressure cooker market was valued at around $4.5 billion in 2024, with projections to reach nearly $5.85 billion by 2033. In other words, this everyday appliance, the one many people only remember exists when it's time to cook beans or rice, drives a billion-dollar industry, and it's present, in one form or another, in kitchens across a large part of the planet. It also carries a simple, powerful promise: saving time. Food that would take hours over a traditional flame cooks in a fraction of the time under pressure. That's why, since it was popularized, it has never gone out of style. But here's what stays invisible in everyday use. The traditional pressure cooker, even the more common electric ones, still relies heavily on the cook's own experience. You choose the time. You estimate the amount of water. You decide when to turn it off. Getting that calculation wrong by just a few minutes can be the difference between perfectly cooked rice and mush, or between tender meat and tough meat. And there's another issue most people don't notice. The heating inside these cookers isn't always even. Parts of the food near the base cook faster than the parts on top. It's a physical problem, not a mistake by the cook. It just stays hidden behind the final result, which sometimes turns out well and sometimes doesn't. Add the daily routine to that. It's precisely the people with little time, those who work outside the home, who run the household alone, who just want to come home and eat, who most need predictability. And that's exactly what the traditional model doesn't always deliver. This isn't new for the industry. Over the past 15 years, brands around the world have tried to solve this problem with digital panels, programmable timers, and preset modes: rice, beans, meat. But as useful as those modes were, they were still fixed. The cooker followed a standard recipe without truly adapting to what was being cooked, the amount of food, or the cut of meat. It was programming, not intelligence. The real breakthrough needed to come from somewhere else, connecting the cooker to a system capable of learning recipes, adjusting variables remotely, and, most importantly, no longer depending solely on physical buttons. That's when Chinese manufacturers asked a different question. What if, instead of the person having to guess the ideal time and pressure, the system itself, through an app and a voice assistant, chose that for them, based on an already tested recipe? Instead of press the right button, it became just tell it what you want to cook. A good real-world example of this is the Mijia 3D Pressure IH, launched by Xiaomi in China in 2025. Think of it as a cooker that talks to your phone. Instead of pressing buttons when it's time to cook, you open the Mi Home app, choose from more than 100 preset recipes, and the cooker adjusts the time, temperature, and pressure on its own for that specific dish. It also has its own voice assistant, Xiao AI, which lets you give spoken commands, like asking the cooker to start cooking without touching anything. And there's an interesting piece of engineering behind it, a heating system called 3D, which circulates hot air under pressure inside the cooker, instead of heating only from the base. Think of it like the difference between a regular oven, which bakes more from below, and a convection oven, which circulates the air and cooks evenly on all sides. That circulation aims to solve exactly the uneven heating problem mentioned earlier. You can also schedule the start of cooking up to 24 hours in advance. Put the ingredients in at night and wake up to a finished meal, for example. The immediate practical result? Fewer decisions left in the user's hands, more consistency from recipe to recipe, and the ability to control everything remotely, even away from home. But this is just the tip of the phenomenon. This kind of cooker isn't an isolated product. It's a symptom of a bigger shift across the entire line of Chinese kitchen appliances. Midea, one of the world's largest small appliance manufacturers, has also invested heavily in Wi-Fi connectivity, voice control, and smart integration across its entire line of electric pressure cookers, and today is considered the market leader in that space within China. And the whole industry is watching this closely. Market analyses indicate that the smart pressure cooker segment, with programmable features, Bluetooth connectivity, and app integration, is expected to grow more than 20% in the coming years, a pace much faster than the traditional pressure cooker market as a whole. In other words, this isn't one company testing a niche product. It's an entire industry shifting from appliance with buttons to appliance as part of a connected home, following the same logic as robot vacuums, smart light bulbs, and voice assistants that have already become common in many households. And that changes the question at the heart of this video. It's no longer, will this specific cooker replace yours? It's, could the idea of cooking by voice command, with recipes adjusted automatically, become the standard, not the exception, for kitchens over the next decade? Before we continue, tell me something in the comments. Would you trust a cooker to choose the cooking time and pressure on its own, or do you prefer to keep manual control even if it means a bit less convenience? Leave your opinion below, drop a like if you're enjoying the video, and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss the next videos about everyday technology that's quietly changing things we never expected. Now, it's important to be honest about the limits of all this. First, price and access. Models like the Mijia 3D Pressure IH launched in the Chinese market for around 799 yuan, roughly the equivalent of 640 Brazilian reais in a direct conversion, not accounting for import taxes, which in many countries drive up the final price of Chinese electronics significantly. Second, for now, these cookers are mostly sold and optimized for the Chinese market, including the app's language, the preset recipes, and outlet compatibility. Official, fully supported availability in other countries is still rolling out gradually. Third, and perhaps most important, smart here mainly means remote control, preset programs, and a voice assistant. Based on the available sources, there's no confirmation of an algorithm that adjusts pressure in real time using complex sensors in a fully autonomous way. It's automation for convenience, not a cooker thinking on its own in the more advanced sense the word AI sometimes implies. And finally, there's the question of connectivity dependence. An appliance that relies on an app and Wi-Fi to work at its full potential also inherits the usual problems of that kind of technology, from needing software updates to the possibility of the app going down. None of this invalidates the progress. It just means that for now, this is a fast-growing trend, not a definitive universal replacement for the traditional pressure cooker, which is still cheaper, simpler, and doesn't depend on anything beyond electricity. At the end of the day, this story isn't just about a cooker. It's about how technology keeps quietly making its way into the most ordinary objects in our routine, the ones we never imagined would need intelligence. First it was the phone, then the TV, then the light bulb, the robot that sweeps the house. Now, it's the cooker deciding the cooking time for you. And that raises a bigger question. How much of our experience in the kitchen, which for centuries was built on intuition, trial and error, recipes passed down from generation to generation, are we, little by little, going to hand over to an app? There's no single right answer. Some people will love the convenience. Others will miss the control, the smell, the, quote, trained eye of someone who has been cooking for decades. So what about you? If you had the choice today, would you trade your current pressure cooker for one of these, controlled by app and voice command? Or would you rather stick with the traditional method? Leave your answer in the comments, drop a like, and subscribe to the channel to keep following these stories about technology that's quietly changing the way we live.